Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into the Daily Bread devotional to really unpack some profound teachings on relationships and faith straight from Matthew chapter 19. To give you a little historical context before we jump into the specifics, Jesus is actually stepping right into the middle of a really fierce cultural debate here. He's being tested by the religious leaders of his day about the strict legalities of divorce. But instead of getting bogged down in debating the law, he completely flips the script. He reorients the entire conversation around God's sovereign design versus our flawed human instinct. So let's dive in.
We are going to start right at the foundation, looking directly at the Bible. Matthew 19 verse 6 says, "So they are no longer two but one flesh. Therefore what God has joined together, let no one separate." This single sentence really anchors everything we're talking about today. It's not just a casual suggestion, it's this profound declaration of God's absolute sovereignty over the covenants He creates. Definitely keep this verse in the back of your mind as we go.
So here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the big picture, look at valuing relationships, talk about childlike humility, go through a step-by-step application, and wrap up with a final reflection.
All right, part 1, the big picture, God's design.
Right off the bat, we are comparing two fundamentally opposing theories of living here. On one hand, you have our fallen human tendency. We are naturally so prone to seek out loopholes, grasp for control, and treat our relationships as highly conditional. But on the other hand, we have God's sovereign design. Jesus looks right past our broken instincts and points all the way back to creation, calling for a permanent commitment and a completely childlike trust in the Father. This contrast is absolutely crucial. It's the lens through which we have to view the rest of this text.
Moving on to Lesson 1, Valuing Relationships.
When the leaders pressed Jesus for a legal loophole about divorce, he didn't take the bait. He pointed to creation. He makes it emphatically clear that marriage isn't just some human agreement or a basic contract between two people. No, it is an institution established by God Himself. This underscores an incredible level of commitment, unity, and just the absolute seriousness of what God has joined together. It elevates the whole idea of union way beyond human convenience.
Let's be real. We live in a world that often treats relationships as temporary, or at best, conditional. But God values faithfulness above all else. And this principle extends way beyond just marriage. Like, if you're a college student trying to navigate campus life right now, this applies directly to how you handle your friendships, your dating life, or even conflicts with your roommate. We are called to treat literally every connection with deep integrity and a genuine desire to honor God's original intent.
Which brings us to Lesson 2, Childlike Humility.
Think about this. Jesus specifically welcomes little children and declares that the kingdom of heaven belongs to those who are like them. But why? Well, because children naturally represent humility, absolute trust, and total dependence on a father. It is such a sharp contrast to our adult world, isn't it? While we completely exhaust ourselves seeking status, leverage, and control, kids just naturally embody the exact posture we need to receive God's grace.
Following Jesus really isn't about relying on your own intellect to figure everything out. True faith actually means trading in our fierce self-reliance for an honest, teachable heart. Whether you're dealing with complex relationships or just trying to get through the day, we're called to approach God with the recognition that our total dependence on His grace is actually our only true strength.
Okay, Section 4, Step-by-Step Application.
So how do we actually live this out? The devotional gives us a really practical step-by-step process. Step 1. View your relationships, yes, even those incredibly stressful college group projects or tricky friendships, through the lens of God's design. Step 2. Practice faithfulness, especially when it gets hard. Step 3. Proactively seek God's wisdom in how you treat people. And Step 4, which honestly might be the hardest one, surrender your need for control and yield entirely to God's sovereign ways.
Keep this simple rallying cry in your mind. Honor God with my faith. That is the central goal here. Everything we do, how we treat our spouses, how we manage our friendships, and how we approach the Father should be filtered through this one singular desire to honor Him through our active, living faith.
And finally, Section 5, Final Reflection and Conclusion.
To summarize the key findings of our research today, first, God's sovereign design vehemently prioritizes permanence over temporary convenience. Second, deep integrity is just a baseline requirement for all of our relationships, honoring what God has joined. And third, true faith demands that we completely abandon our self-reliance for a posture of complete, childlike humility.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative question. In what specific area of your life do you need to trust God with a more childlike, humble faith today? Where are you desperately holding on to control, and how can you surrender that to embrace God's incredible design starting right now? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep wrestling with these truths, keep relying on Him, and I'll catch you next time.